Hey, good evening, friends. Dennis LaRue here. It's 8 p.m. Central Time, San Antonio, Texas. And you know what time that is? It's time for the hashtag steeltoesrequired quote of the week. This is the second week in January 2018. How's your 2018 going? Amy, my number 33, glad you're here. Jeffrey Taylor, glad you're here. Enjoyed talking with you a few minutes ago and looking forward to catching up with you again. Hey, folks, we've got a great quote this week. And, you know, the story that goes along with this quote is powerful because it impacted me this very week. Now, the quote is going to come from, and forgive me, this is backwards, but it's from John Maxwell's book, Today Matters. Now, the book came out in 2004. I read the book and had the audio in 2006, and I must say I've had probably read and listened to this book probably 10 times now. Hey, Lucy, good to see you. Hey, Pastor George, I'm glad you're out there too as well, and Jeff Grove. You see, this book is about John's daily dozen, and it's what he does every single day. Hi, Gina, glad you're out there as well. And within this, on page 168, he's talking about today's commitment gives me tenacity. And I read a quote there. And this quote is quoted by John, and the author's name is Arthur Gordon. And he said this. Listen to this quote. Get your steel toes on. Here we go. Nothing is easier than saying words. And nothing is harder than living them day after day. Whew. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? You see, I was on a flight recently to California, as you know. And for 3.5 hours, I talked with the guy next to me. We had a great conversation, talking about leadership and sports. And for 3.5 hours, we talked. And it went by like that. I can talk all day long. But it's now talk that leads to action. That's the difference. And the reason I share this quote is because you know what? I failed in this area recently. And it stepped on my toes. It beat me up. I tell you, I made a commitment with my words with somebody, but then my actions, I failed to show up. And it wasn't the fact that I failed to show up that hurt, or I missed an opportunity. It was a person that I consider a friend, a colleague, and I let them down. That's what hurt. And as I was thinking through this, you know what? You know, how many of you had parents, or maybe you've done this as a parent? I've got 3 kids of my own. Check this out. How many of you have heard this? Do as I say, not as I do. I don't see any hearts. I don't see any likes. You know why? Because that steps on our toes. Do as I say, not as I do. You know what that means? It means you're telling people what I'm doing is not good for you and you can't do it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And here's what I know about leadership, and I learned it from John, and I've actually tested this out. People do what people see. That's what John Maxwell says. I completely agree with it. People do what people see. Now, I come from the military. Amy's a veteran. And we've seen this. We've heard this term called RHIP. Rank has its privileges. But just because we have those privileges doesn't mean we tell people to do things that we ourselves would not do. And so when we, by our actions, and we tell others not to do those things, man, you're setting yourself up for failure. So back to my story where I messed up this week. I flat out messed up and felt awful about it. So there are times in life when your actions are not going to match up with your words. Hopefully it's not a daily occurrence, but it does happen. And when we do that, we impact people's lives and we affect others. And so what I thought about just sharing with you for a few minutes is when that happens, when you mess up and it impacts a friend or it impacts a relationship, what do? How do you make it right? So I came up with 5 things that I think that would definitely impact and help repair the relationship. What's most important here is not that I messed up. The most important thing to me is it's the relationship. And ensuring that relationship is repaired and restored. And the first thing that you need to do to repair and restore a relationship because your words didn't match your actions is you got to take ownership. You got to take ownership up front. Amy and I are big baseball fans. The steroid era. Why are there asterisks and people not in the Hall of Fame? Because none of them stepped up and owned up when it all came out. Taking ownership. So I messed up. And I immediately took ownership and said, you know what? I messed up. And it's not just saying you messed up. What's also important here is when you mess up, you acknowledge what you did, but then the next step is going to the individual you have hurt or disappointed or disrespected, and you ask for forgiveness. Now notice I said forgiveness. I did not say I'm sorry or apologize. These are three different terms. And the big difference is when you ask for forgiveness, you are humbling yourself and saying, I messed up. I harmed the relationship. You are acknowledging that you failed. Now, I got kids. And when you catch your kids doing something and they say, I'm sorry, normally when we say I'm sorry, it means I'm sorry I got caught. But you're not deep down. It's not in your heart. When you're asking for forgiveness, it's a humbling and it's deep down in your soul. And people can tell when you're sorry you got caught and when you're really seeking forgiveness. Two big differences. So the first thing you do is you take ownership. The second thing is you ask for forgiveness. And when you ask for that forgiveness, here's something that's really important. Acknowledge to the individual how they felt. Did they feel disrespected? Were they angry? And if they're angry enough, they'll let you know up front that they're angry, or you disrespected them, or you disobeyed them, or whatever that is. But you need to acknowledge that. No matter how hard it is, a pill to swallow, you still need to do it because it's the right thing to do. The third thing you do when you're asking for forgiveness is, how do I make it right? When you've messed up a relationship, how can you repair and restore that relationship? In other words, how can you make it right? In my situation, I've asked that question. How can I make it right? And I'm so grateful that where I messed up, I'm going to get an opportunity to make that right. And I'm so grateful for that because, again, it's not about what you did. It's about the relationship. Again, it's the relationship. It's the people. Actions happen. Things happen. Your words don't marry up with your actions. But when it affects a relationship, you need to go all in to repair and restore that relationship as much as possible. Now, after you've asked for forgiveness, and when you've tried to make it right, here's something that I think most people forget. You've got to forgive yourself. Now, I've got a very sensitive conscience. I really do. And when I have let somebody down, it really tears me up because I don't like to let anybody down, period. I don't. And sometimes when you have that sensitive conscience, you can beat yourself up. And you can it's an opportunity for that little gremlin whispering in your ear, telling you how bad you are. You messed up. Boy, you probably ruined this relationship forever. I can't believe you did that. And all kinds of other things. And so you need to look yourself in the mirror, acknowledge you made a mistake to yourself, and then forgive yourself. This is critical. I'm telling you right now, there was a season in my life where I couldn't forgive myself. And it literally took me years, that's right, years, to get past something because I couldn't forgive myself. And when I forgave myself, guess what? My life changed. I was unchanged. I was unleashed, and relationships were restored because of it. You're holding yourself back when you don't forgive yourself. And then finally, the fifth thing that you need to do when you've messed up a relationship, your actions and words have not married up, and it's hindered a relationship, once you've done those things, once you've taken ownership, you've asked for forgiveness, you've forgiven yourself, you've tried to make it right, the fifth thing is move forward. Move on. You've done everything you could possibly do, so move forward. Now it's going to feel awkward. If the relationship is restored, you know it's going to feel a little awkward being around that person. Don't avoid that person, and hopefully they don't avoid you. It's going to get a little awkward. However, that's okay. Remember, if you're uncomfortable, you're in a position of growth. This is a growing opportunity. So embrace it and move forward. Now, what if it is you that is offended in the relationship? Somebody did that to you. What do? How do you handle that? So I'm going to give you 5 more things when the shoe's on the other foot. Somebody has done something that's impacted you, and it's their fault, not yours. So how do you respond? The first thing you need to do is acknowledge your emotions up front. You may experience anger, frustration, disappointment. You're going to sadness, grief, all kinds of different things. You need to be emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent that those things are going to happen. And when I say that, do not respond immediately in that moment. Now, if it's an email, the good thing is take time. Take time, let the emotions run through. Do not respond immediately. And in the words of Herman Edwards, if you start typing up an email, do not press send. Don't press it. Hold back. Let the heat of the emotion die down, and you can think clearly on how to respond. Just know the emotions are there. The individual, if they're properly trying to restore and repair the relationship, are going to come to you. You need to be available. Be available and hear them out. Listen to their heart. But at the same time, share your disappointment. Share that they disrespected you. Share those feelings, because if they truly want to repair and restore the relationship, they will acknowledge what they did, as we just shared, and they're going to ask for forgiveness for those things, because the relationship with you is that important to them. And then the toughest part is forgive them. Forgive them. Now, they may have done something to you that, you know what, you may not want to spend time with them after that, but can you forgive them? That's the important thing. When you forgive, you're releasing the burden, maybe off them, but more importantly, you're releasing the burden off of you. The 4th thing you can do, you got to answer this question: can it be made right? If they want to make it right, you need to help them make it right. Tell them exactly what the other person needs to do to make it right. And if it can't be made right, you need to let them know that. There's some situations that come up, you know what? It just can't be made right. So the 5th thing you do from that point is simply this: move forward. Again, the awkwardness is going to be there, but you still got to move forward. So I covered a whole lot here because, you know what? I failed this week. And I have done these 5 things, and I've had these things happen to me in the past, and I thought for a minute, what would help in relationship building? What would help to repair and restore relationships? And these are some things that happen. You know, so often our words don't marry up. So often we say the right thing and we just don't back it up with our actions. So in the event that they do, how do you restore the relationship? These, I believe, will help. And I hope this added value to you. I appreciate each one of you that are here today. I see so many new names: Courtney Sullivan, Kelly Rodriguez, so good to see you. My wife is on there, Jamie. Sheridan Cloud, there's so many there. And I appreciate you. And Amy, I love you too, my friend. I appreciate you so much. What I care about is relationships. Relationships matter. We don't go anywhere in this life without good relationships. Hey, Trudy, glad to see you also. So, with all that said, I hope you've enjoyed this installment of the hashtag steeltoesrequired quote of the week. And like I do every week, I want to close with a blessing. First, I want to bless you. I pray a blessing of bread with you, that you know no hunger. A blessing of salt, that not only will you have flavor in your life, but you will be flavorful in other people's lives. The blessing of wine, that you would enjoy joy and prosperity all year long. And then finally, I pray the love of God in your life, and it would be your portion. I pray all of these things for you. I pray these blessings for you. Thank you for joining me. And if this added value to you, I'll just share this with your folks. I really want to see more repaired relationships. And if this was a value add, please, by all means, share it with your friends. This is Dennis LaRue with your hashtag SteelToesRequired quote of the week. Have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye for now.